two candidates, and actually why. Okay.
Okay, let's go.
You got it rolling.
Yep.
Okay, I believe my understanding of why the Alaska Federation of Natives snubbed the other two candidates is not because they necessarily wanted to snub them, but because in their minds, the candidate that they had sitting up there for 30 minutes to spew her ideas.
It was an hour, man.
Are not ideas that would look toward the self-determination of Native people, but a continuation of the status quo. And the status quo is that the Alaska Federation of Natives hierarchy, the Native corporate hierarchy, and I would almost dare say the nonprofit hierarchy, they're all being fed federal funds to support their, I don't know, it's very conservative, $150,000 a year salaries at least, with fringe benefits including retirement, health benefits. Many of these corporate executives of ours, Native people, they're stocking their bank accounts with so much that even they're buying, I believe, private property in the city bowl areas. They're probably even buying private property down the lower 48. You know, they're enriched by Lisa Murkowski's programs and her desire to continue federal funding. Meanwhile, the disenfranchised are our brothers and sisters, our relatives out in the villages in these so-called second-class cities, like our state calls them. They're treated second, third class. They get nothing. There's unemployment, people living paycheck to paycheck, people living in despair in the villages. Meanwhile, our corporate executives, Native people that are running these programs, are living high and mighty. They attend conferences in some of the nicest cities and resorts across America. They live in wine and dine in the nicest motels, hotels across Alaska and the United States, discussing the so-called poor condition of our village people. And yet, really what's happening is that they're enriching themselves. They're taking advantage of a situation that's truly bleak.
Well,
all right.
You know, I would like to make a statement on how I feel, how I think Scott McAdams. I don't think we're going to get. I want to get there in terms of how much money those folks are making. But I think what I would like to see, and I think Scott feels that education programs and all of those social programs and that are coming to our communities must be accountable, and we would like to have the health care services, educational services, and those other services increase the funding, as the Assistant Secretary made those statements earlier, that 8.5% that the tribal allocations have increased in this nation. But I think Scott McAdams is the one that would really make sure that the village tribal governments are heard and they are respected, and we will, as tribes, he knows that, like in Sitka tribes, that they can create these for-profit corporations, which they can do, and they can create these nonprofits if the sovereign tribe wants to. So I think the Native community must come together, both the Native corporations, the tribal governments, the nonprofits must come together and to set the course for the future of our kids. And I think, and Scott feels that education is the top priority to get these things going, and adequate funding goes to all of the communities throughout Alaska. that we would have first-class education.
Well, I'd like to thank both of you for coming together
and-
as disenfranchised supporters who have added immensely to the conversation, and it's too bad we couldn't have had this kind of
And I would
conversation
like to say,
at AFN.
One last thing, and Mike said that Scott Adams said this, and what I'd like to say is what Joe Miller said, and actually was quoted in the Daily Newsminer today by the co-chair of AFN, that one of the reasons why they kept Joe Miller out was because Joe Miller was criticizing the corporate structure for not being accountable enough to what's going on. And so what the co-chair said was, why should we have somebody that's criticizing us stand up? Why should we allow them a opportunity to stand up in front in our organization? Why should we let them in our house? Is the way it was quoted in today's Daily Newsminer paper. And Joe Miller is asking for accountability. He's asking for responsibility, and I believe that he's reaching out and he's listening to the situation that the people out in rural areas are in, and he wants to find ways to help them out.